Hello, welcome back to another episode of Gamer Chats. We're on episode 13, and we're going to be talking about Bethesda today. We've got a special guest with us, Soulblade.
Hello.
There you go. Who is my zucchini. So, and he wanted to be here to talk about Bethesda because he is a fan of the franchise and the games itself. And we've also got Raptor, who's played the Fallout games. Ruthless, you're gonna have to
Yep.
remind me which games you've played of the series of the franchise.
Mostly
And
Fallout
I'm a
games.
clueless dumbass.
Oh yeah, then we have Skull, who's never played a Bethesda title before, so he's here to learn. And I've played
Yeah.
Oblivion and Skyrim, and if you want to kill Elder Scrolls Online, go ahead. That's on one's up in the air, but I've played that too. Yeah, the only ones I haven't played are like the ones before Morrowind, and I tried Morrowind, but Morrowind was not a fun game for me to go back to. I couldn't do
It
it.
can be interesting.
It can be, but it's hard. It's hard to play for me. It's the map. It doesn't have a map, so it bothers me. If we're being entirely honest there. But since we basically have people who've played Fallout more, I'm gonna let you guys kind of take over there, and just kind of like start out with like you guys go on and discuss Fallout of Bethesda. And obviously, for those that don't know, obviously the big titles from Bethesda are Fallout and the Elder Scrolls series. They've made more. I haven't played the others, but if you guys have, feel free and chime in with what other Bethesda titles you've played. But
Okay, so do you want to start with Fallout 76 because that takes place earlier on in the franchise, or Fallout 1 because first Fallout?
Well, I mean, there's not too much to talk about Fallout 1 in all honesty, except for one of the girls that you saved that you ask if they'd like to have a relationship or do things, but no matter which gender you choose, and even if you have all your speech up, they always find an excuse or something just like shyly back out.
Go find a Brahma or something.
Why?
Hey, she actually says that.
I believe it's the same for Fallout 2 as well. I don't think there's many romance options as that one either.
Well, yeah, not really. I think there's more in Fallout 4 than anything, last I checked, correct?
Yeah. Fallout 3 is where you get the few of them. It kind of like
I'm
starts
more
sprinkling
confused
there,
about
kind of
why
like it
the
does
first thing
Oblivion.
you guys talk about is like love interest in the game.
I don't know why.
I don't know either. I'm sitting there like, what the fuck? Why is that the first thing you two default to? So confused.
The first thing I kind of
It might just be.
You were saying, Skull? It just might be what?
It might just be like a guy thing or something. I don't know.
But like the rest of you are guys here, and I don't count as anything at this point. So I am that in between.
I have no commentary to make because I've never played the games.
But like,
Well,
I mean,
from what I've seen of your guys' last podcast, you guys have been talking about a lot of couples for different fandoms and stuff like that. So that's what I thought we were going to be talking about for a little bit.
No, you just talk about the games. I mean, did you not see the Sonic episode? Like, holy fuck!
Which one?
Oh my goodness.
I mean, the Sonic episode was mostly talking about couples for the whole thing.
No, it's not.
Yes,
We were
was.
talking. It really wasn't. We were talking about the game.
It was.
And the comic books.
It was that, and also kind of collectively
half,
bullying each
talking
other
about,
for
like ships and characters.
And to be fair, with Steven Universe, we also talked a lot more about the characters themselves, not the couples. Like, obviously, you're going to talk about the couples when you're talking about the characters because it's the fandom. Like, it's, you know.
I haven't seen the Steven Universe one yet. That's one I haven't seen.
Oh, dear Lord.
Nope.
No.
It's
not the only thing we got.
So far.
I didn't talk about any romances in the Zelda episode.
Well, yeah, because we didn't really have anything to contribute to that one, and you were just kind of like you were trying. A for effort, buddy. A for effort.
I didn't talk about romances in that episode. You can't say that we use only romances in these episodes. So, anyways,
I know.
Anyway.
Yeah, I think we're getting off track just a little
anyways,
bit.
Oh my
teach
gosh.
me about Fallout, please. Is it a series worth playing, or did I waste my money?
Or
Right,
is it just
Betsy,
like a
let's talk
relationship
about.
simulator?
No, it's not a relationship simulator. What the hell is wrong with you?
Because that's the first thing YouTube defaulted to.
Like, I genuinely was like speechless. But anyways, I kind of think like I'm just gonna give the short summary about Fallout.
Thank you, Ruthless.
Just make it very simple. Imagine a post-apocalyptic world that's like you're like in a specific area of like America. So like when with I think the first two Fallouts, you're in like California, somewhere in California. I think it's like one is northern and the other is southern. I don't know. I don't remember it exactly because I don't know California that well. I know more the East Coast than anything else since I'm mainly from there. And the Fallout franchise is a very huge, like has a lot of lore and a lot of things that are just undiscovered. But pretty much imagine like the world went through an apocalypse because of nuclear warfare.
And also,
Okay.
before that, it was a world where technology is advanced, but it hasn't.
Kind of think like The Incredibles, where it's that kind of like 50s, 60s kind of retro, like futuristic kind of stuff, but still having that style kind of thing to it.
Yeah, there's like fusion-powered stuff, robots, and at the same time, there's computers from like the fucking 50s or something.
Yeah. Pretty much.
And we're all the way in the 2070s.
Humanity's doomed at this point.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because
we're
China and the
basically
US are in a
heading
Cold
out, let's be
War.
honest.
Yeah.
And I think something to really kind of accentuate on the lore aspect is for the Bethesda franchises that they have is it's a big central part, I would say, of like their games and their series and things like that. Because again, another notable one is Elder Scrolls, and Elder Scrolls is very lore heavy, and I'm pretty sure we've all seen lore videos on Elder Scrolls or Fallout at some point on YouTube.
Do not get into a discussion with me about achieving Kim in fucking Elder Scrolls.
Oh my god, that's a discussion in and of itself, and people
or
have
the
had that.
Godhead. Or the Godhead or Talus's back. Or any of that.
Oh yeah, no. No. We ain't
Hell,
getting into that.
I even came across this chef on YouTube or something recreating a Nuka-Cola.
People do that.
Yeah.
They do that with like sweet rolls too, and other kind of like Skyrim or Oblivion recipes.
Jones Lemonade did have a limited edition mock-up of that where they literally made the label on the bottle look like the Nuka-Cola Quantum, where they had like a blue raspberry drink and just a cola drink to look like the Nuka-Cola bottles for a little bit.
That's cool.
They sold out like crazy.
The one I'm talking about is it really stood out to me because a lot of other people that do it use like the Fallout cookbook. This one that I saw, he kind of like just did his own thing. Like well, actually, he did like 3 versions, 2 more budget-friendly versions, and a more advanced version. I don't even know where I'm going with this.
Do you
want to talk about the Master and Fallout 1 and how the Master is as a villain, since you know a bit about that, I think?
Oh yeah, the Master. He's interesting. Basically, he has powers. He creates super mutants. Basically, he owns a bunch of these vats with this like I guess toxic goo filled with like a virus that turns man into these giant green monsters.
Like the brutes?
Uh, you mean the super mutants?
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
meant.
yeah, and also apparently he has these like powers. He can kill people and infuse them into like his body, and even use their voices, use the voices of his past victims.
Oh, so that's what that is. Yeah,
Yeah,
because there's very few very very few NPCs in Fallout 1 that actually have voice lines when you bring up dialogue box, because it's almost like Morrowind, if anyone's played it, where most of the game is just text boxes and you click different options and get different dialogue results. For the most part, so when you have a weird kind of half 3D, half 2D pixelated animated kind of sprites almost, and some of them have 3D models to a degree, they'll have voice lines. The master ends up talking in different voices, like mid sentence. Like it'll sound like an old man, then it'll sound like a normal, like middle aged guy, and then it'll switch to like a seductive woman, just all in the same sentence, and it can be kind of creepy. And it's just
yeah,
this flesh monster wrapped around a whole computer unit, essentially,
yeah. Those are the voices of his past victims.
like a half flesh, half robot AI.
Yeah, and yeah, he also had a lot of help from this cult in the game called the Church of the Cathedral. You
The
familiar with that?
children,
Yeah, the Children of the Cathedral. You
yeah,
familiar with them?
I think that's what they're called.
Yeah. So yeah, basically they're a huge problem.
You have
And
anything? Were they connected at all to the children of Adam?
no, from what I understand, the Children of Adam is its own thing. And do you remember the importance of Tandy and her settlement, the Shady Sand settlement?
I do not.
Okay, so basically, after canonically, spoilers, but at the same time, this
Oh,
game is late 90s,
actually,
whatever.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's the one NPC I was referencing before that when is pretty much
Yeah,
the only one that you can actually try to have a type of relationship with within the game,
yeah,
while the rest is all just, for lack of a better terms, because there really is no better term for it, just prostitute NPCs.
yeah, and also it's when I referenced one of her quotes, "Go find a Brahma or something."
So that's
With
where that's from.
your response, yeah, but yeah, basically, canonically, she's rescued from the Raider gangs by the Vault Dweller. Her and her father turned Shady Sands into a very thriving community, and because of that, end up founding the New California Republic, and
Yeah,
she becomes their leader, pretty
yeah,
much, the
and
president of the NCR.
yeah, she kind of becomes part of the lore of that game. Like the one thing that's kind of nice with the Fallout games, there's always like interconnected, but like some of the NPCs will like come in later or even be referenced in the other games. That's one thing that's nice with the lore of the game. Is like they reference, like they do the interconnected, and they keep it very clean with the continuity.
Yeah, and even
Uh,
Tandy is actually in Fallout 2 as well. I mean, she's an old ass woman, but she's there.
is she referenced at all in New Vegas?
Yeah,
Uh, I don't
she's
remember actually.
literally one of the first president. I think it was like the first president of the
Yeah,
NCR.
yeah, she was the first president of the NCR, founder and first president.
Well, I know that she was mentioned in Fallout 2, but I've never seen anything about her in New Vegas, unless there's like just a picture of her somewhere.
Well, I mean, I would imagine she would be pretty famous if she was the Republic's first president.
I remember very vividly because just going through the New Vegas, not New Vegas, but going through the NCR bases, and just remember like one cameo, like somewhat of a cameo of her, just a reference of her.
Okay, that makes sense, because I was gonna say, I was looking up earlier, she dies in 2248, and then New Vegas takes place almost 40 years later.
Yeah. She's not physically there. She's kind of reference heavily, like almost saying that she became like the president, the first president.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like what I guess George Washington would be to the United States.
Exactly.
So tell us more. What else about these games?
Well, I was gonna say, for what you were saying a second ago, Raptor, how like they reference things like that, how Tandy is kind of referenced throughout two other games aside from the main one that she's actually in.
Yeah.
There's also that one kid that you find that's like the son of one of the leaders, or the younger brother of one of the leaders, I believe, in Fallout 3, who later becomes the annoying kind of prick asshole leader in Fallout 4.
Oh, Elder
Arthur.
Max!
Yeah, Elder
Yeah.
Arthur Max. Yeah. He was that adorable little kid that just wants to be a soldier and wear like some power armor in number 3 when you get into the main camp. And then in 4 you play, it's just he's this asshole that is like soulless almost. He doesn't care about anything. He just wants to conquer the world basically and be the new government.
Yeah, like, I actually remember I actually played Fallout 4 before I played Fallout 3, and when I played Fallout 3 and I came across this kid named Arthur Maxon, holy hell.
Yeah, and I think he was one of the youngest ones to be appointed the leader within the entirety that the Brotherhood was formed too.
Oh yeah, because in Fallout 3, I'm not sure how many people know this, but that was that technically wasn't Brotherhood of Steel. It was called Lion's Pride Brotherhood of Steel because they kind of gone rogue from main Brotherhood of Steel, if that makes sense. Basically, Brotherhood of Steel, which is primarily based in the West Coast, you know, their main goal is to like hoard all technology, basically prevent the events of 2077 from happening again. It's one of the big things. But also they're kind of just a technology cult. And they've sent like some Brotherhood out to the East Coast, set things up there. But their leader, Elder Lyons, didn't want to do that. He wanted to use the power he had to help the people of where he was, being the Capital Wasteland or the remains of Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So yeah, they've pretty much no longer received support from the main Brotherhood of Steel after that. They were pretty much on their own after that. That's why they were kind of like limited numbers against the Enclave.
Yeah.
And
have either of you two played a good majority of New Vegas? Because I myself, that's the one Fallout game I haven't touched at all, really.
I played New Vegas.
Not really.
I love New Vegas. Like,
well, how does Caesar's Legion tie into everything? Like, how does that tie in regard with the Brotherhood and things like that? Since he said that the Brotherhood's mainly located in the west, out where the Legion was invading.
So, I do know the. Oh, sorry, Ruthless. Go ahead.
No, you can go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say yeah. I do remember that Brotherhood of Steel is in Fallout New Vegas. I believe they're primarily stationed in the New Vegas Strip in uh in the remains of Las Vegas, which has pretty much been rebuilt, actually.
Hmm. So yeah, with me going off of pure memory, and I remember it very clearly of me just going with my high charisma. Like I went with a high intelligence, with the character of mine, and I went with this character, and I remember vividly that there would be a so the where they are at the Brotherhood of Steel, they would actually be at around they would be in the trying to remember the system. They would have like a specific system that would try to cloak their entrance from their bunker because they're more bunker like with the West Coast Brotherhood of Steel. They primarily are in the California and the near that in that region, but they had more people just in the New Vegas and Nevada area. And they had a bunker there and they were trying to keep it going. But they're way more stricter with the how they have more new people come in. So yeah. And also the Seizures Legion would tie in because they're the ones that kind of more they're trying to just conquer everything. Like imagine Rome, but more Fallout in the context of Fallout. So they were trying to conquer everything. And they wanted to destroy all technology.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking from the point of someone who hasn't had any experience with these games and any listeners who haven't, I'm completely fucking lost.
Well, I mean, if you haven't played the games, of course you're gonna be lost.
That's a bit fair, and to be honest, it can be kind of complicated even if you were to just jump in straight into the beginning as a person who's never had any knowledge or any experience playing any of the Fallout
Oh, for the
games.
love of all.
Yeah, well, main reason is because if anybody knows anything about like the older Elder Scrolls games, even like Daggerfall or Arena, it's the same kind of thing with Fallout, except instead of just being a first person older style hack and slash game, it's more of like a third person kind of like bird's eye view camera almost for most of the
Yeah.
game, walking around the map, conquering, developing more story, stuff like that. And it can honestly be difficult to get into the game just because of how off-putting it can be when you can easily enter an area that you don't know you're not supposed to be in. You don't know that area is like, oh, the enemies are like death claws and like rad scorpions and stuff like that, like higher level kind of like enemies that you shouldn't be facing until you've been playing the game for a while and have gotten some decent gear and learned how to use certain mechanisms of the game, like upgrading and things like that.
I mean, honestly, after playing the first Fallout game, I actually kind of like that old gameplay style. And again, I prepared a little beforehand. I've watched like a controls and mechanics video on how to play Fallouts 1 and 2 beforehand. After that, honestly, I found it to be quite interesting, quite fun, but then again, I find a lot of old things quite interesting, quite fun.
I've had a bit of a habit with that myself too lately, to be honest, because a similar thing for me is I've been trying to get into older Elder Scrolls games. Like I've been trying to get more into Morrowind, but my first playthrough was very difficult because I didn't realize the RNG of the game and how certain mechanics and that you level up are all dice roll based, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, and not just like Skyrim. You have a certain amount of damage you do based on your level and certain skills, and then it scales off of that. It's like you can have a really great weapon, but if you have zero proficiency in it, then you're just going to be rolling like 20 to 50 times and maybe only hit the thing like twice.
Yeah.
Only do like 2 HP damage on a freaking rat that only has like 10 HP.
Yeah, I believe it's pretty much the same with the Fallout's 1, 2 tactics, like heavy weapons, energy weapons, stuff like that. I
Yeah.
think even melee weapons as well.
Honestly, for a lot of people, and since we're kind of leading towards this game already with the route we've been talking in order chronology, Fallout 3 and some people say New Vegas, but I feel like Fallout 3 is more of a kind of like a clean, fresh slate to start with for a game. It's, I mean, it's a first-person 3D RPG open world game.
Yeah.
And they kind of reintroduce you to all the concepts that they built upon in the first two games, and just kind of refine them a little bit, simplify them, and I don't know, there's a lot of nostalgia that comes from that game as well, I believe. Like, I'm sure you two can agree with if you've played it at all, which I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
I mean,
Even just turning on Galaxy News Radio and just listening to that while you just venture throughout Fallout 3, which is based in a apocalyptic version of Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though I will say I like Fallout New Vegas way more, and I will have to admit, and go, I'm just gonna say this up front. It depends on which game, on like the difficulty of the encounters. Like if it's like Fallout 4, it's actually supposed to be consistent with your levels of the difficulty. It's just a matter of like how high in like how above which area would place it. Now there's like one encounter that I know that's like more difficult for the level. That's how the game design was. And if you're one of those people, and I would argue if you're very into the type of games that has more the story element and the RP, the almost the feeling of the real breathing world element of the world and the real breathing RPG, I kind of would say Fallout would be a closer franchise to it.
It's something I will say. You don't have to play like the first couple of Fallout games to. It's not gonna kill you or ruin anything for you if you don't play the first two Fallout games. But I will say if you're really interested in the lore, which I personally was, and you didn't play the first couple of Fallout games, then I guess just watch a lore video. Honestly, the lore is interesting.
I don't know. You make me want to fall asleep right now listening to it.
I mean, it can be if you don't have any pre-context or haven't at least like delved into it a bit. I mean, it can be the exact same thing as Skyrim if no one's ever played any of the Elder Scrolls games for that
Here's
matter.
the
You could just be
thing:
talking about
no one
gods
goes
or
into the
something.
games giving a damn about the lore if they're starting out.
Yeah. Like the biggest appeal that I remember about the Fallout games, it was actually the whole real breathing world element. And it felt like it didn't feel like a normal, like it just feels like a unique art, like it feels unique. Like all the characters felt unique.
Like it was
Yeah.
different. It had that Bethesda charm because it was an open world. It had this very lively kind of thing where the characters themselves, to a degree, felt alive. Obviously, it's varying degrees because it's Bethesda and things aren't always gonna work, but it just works. We know what we're saying, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, technically, with how Fallout was, with the open world concept, technically Bethesda didn't come up with that because, well, they didn't create the franchise.
It was Obsidian, right?
No. Okay, let me explain this part. Basically, the Fallout franchise was created by a company called Interplay Entertainment.
But it was bought out by Bethesda.
No, it was actually not bought out. It's actually a little bit of an interesting thing. Basically, they themselves make the game, first game, then they make their own team for it called Black Isle Studios, which is just another division of Interplay to make Fallout 2 and a couple other games after that, which are considered non-canon. Then basically the company's about to go bankrupt. Then they decide to sell the company to sell the Fallout franchise to Bethesda.
Also, instead of getting bought out, they sold the franchise itself.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Interplay itself didn't completely shut down. They just shut down Black Isle Studios, and a bunch of people lost, and everyone that worked for Black Isle Studios lost their job, and a bunch of those people, if not all those people that worked for Black Isle Studios, actually came together to form Obsidian Entertainment. So that's the story behind Obsidian. Was Black Isle Studios, Interplay Entertainment. That's why. That's one of the big reasons why Fallout New Vegas was pretty huge at the time, I believe, because it was created by the original makers of the Fallout games, rather than Bethesda.
And yeah, a lot of the charm, honestly, from the game, because I know that a lot of like older games in the time when Fallout 1 and 2 were made were just really, really futuristic, big corporation takeover, kind of post-apocalyptic corporate America with like, hacking ends, and basically what Cyberpunk 2077 is,
Yeah,
for the most
even
part,
though
is what a lot of themes of games were for back then. So Fallout was a really nice, fresh kind of change. Just like the style and the theme, and even the branding of just like the little Pip-Boy character.
yeah, even though I got the vibe from it of like it's kind of like with the original Fallout, I kind of got the vibe of like more kind of like so like imagine like the time of the the 19th century of advanced technology. That's kind of what I kind of see a little bit, and then added like elements of like of each technology of like
Yeah,
nuclear and everything.
it's really just a lot like survival. See the gruesome depictions of what has come about with the fallout of the world, and just basically what horrific kind of things you'll see. There's a lot of shock factor to the original ones because it's got that cutesy kind of like old timey vibe, but then you get into these horror stories about what happened to certain people from different vaults, how they failed, how some
Yeah,
people are just trapped, and how they have their own society in that vault, and now they have their own religion based around the survival of just staying in the vaults. And a lot of vaults that are still intact, they have a fear of even ever leaving, and all the cults that have developed outside. Um, there's the whole controversy of like people that were always secluded and have pure DNA that wasn't affected by the radiation, things like that. And then a lot of the nostalgia, for the most part, even in the early games, comes from the Pip-Boy since it's part of your layout. And then the fact they even include it later on in 3 and 4 and make it your main source of like fighting and combat just by being able to do more critical damage and focusing on certain strikes of different body parts of characters and stuff like that. Honestly, gives it a really nice feel. So just when you're in the middle of a battle.
All right, I'm bored. Let's talk about Elder Scrolls now.
All right.
Thank
You guys are,
you.
yeah, that's it. You're putting me to sleep. You're putting Skull to sleep. You need to end this now, and I'm ending it.
I was kind of was like, I don't know what
It's
to
like
say because
Ruthless was like the only one paying attention to us in the Discord chat.
I was
well,
actually half paying attention.
well, I mean, you still came in there to like type something else. I'm just like me and Skull were having a little fun there. Then Raptor decided to flip us off, and we're like, "Fuck you, bitch." So
I don't think I
no,
can see the chat.
oh, you won't be able to see. It's our personal chat here, but.
Okay.
No, yeah, I'm done listening to this. I'm sorry, but I go back to my initial statement where I'm just like, no one fucking gives a damn about the lore and the other technical things. They care about like the fucking gameplay. They care about like the fucking game itself. So
Yeah, I think I will say it has been like a lot of each of those games are janky, but the least jankiest from my experience, but has a bunch of glitch that you can abuse
is it Fallout 4?
is Fallout 4.
Yeah.
I knew it. I fucking knew it.
But
It
if
just
you
fucking works, right, Todd?
but if you
The
want like
only question I had was, did I waste my money buying this game?
no.
Honestly,
But you
no.
guys said, with the explanations, my conclusion is I wasted my fucking money. Thank you.
I say no. You didn't waste your money.
Well,
But I can see
okay,
it.
look,
I
here's
can
the
see it
thing. It's
from his
the
eyes.
delivery of what you guys are saying. Because, like I said before, no one gives a fucking damn about the lore if you're going into the franchise.
Yeah,
You care
I
about the
can see it.
game. Like, Ruthless, like, you said what the appeal was for you was, like, how the world felt alive. I mean,
Yeah,
you gotta go into that. You gotta explain. You gotta explain why the game is
I
good.
I
Once they
kind of
like the
was.
game and like, oh, sorry, Ruthless, one moment. Once you explain that why the game is good, then people get into the lore because then they're invested. They go ahead, Ruthless. Sorry about that.
Yeah, for certain. I will admit, I was trying to keep like push like because I had a few part of me was like, okay, I could sense like the conversation just became like very lore heavy. I was like,
People actually made it this far into
listen,
the episode.
I love lore.
Congratulations for not clicking away.
I love lore and all, but like I like if it's like it's almost like comic books. Like you have to have some entry point.
You do. You absolutely do. And I'll be quite honest for those that don't know the Elder Scrolls franchise, which sorry if you're a luck there. Um, it's basically your fantasy medieval kind of RPG game, typical open world, thanks to Skyrim, and well, technically Oblivion too, but you know, and Morrowind. But you know, if you didn't play Morrowind when it came out, it's a little hard to play right now. I'm just gonna say that right now. Don't go back and play Morrowind unless you like to torture yourself. There's no quest markers. The map doesn't give you any directions. It's a fucking
I highly
mess.
disagree, actually. I had a lot of trouble, and now I'm actually very much enjoying it.
Well, I'm glad you did, because I certainly did. And you're so slow in that game. Oh my gosh. Like,
Yeah,
look
but you're
at
so slow in Oblivion, too. But it's not that hard to get faster in Morrowind,
You
but it
love
takes a
it.
little bit to get faster in Oblivion, I
What's that,
feel
Skull?
like.
What's the gameplay like?
Okay, so which game do we want to talk about? I don't really know much about Morrowind. Soul's gonna have to take over for that, but I have played Oblivion and Skyrim, so pick your poison.
Either or is fine. Just give me something. I want to know if any of Bethesda's games are actually worth investing money in.
Alright, let's start this. We're gonna go with Oblivion, because Oblivion, to me, is probably the best of the two, but that is also prior to Skyrim's, like, anniversary release. Like, what was it, the 10-year anniversary? Right, Dan? Soul?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. So Oblivion is very simple. It's like the end of the arena,
Third
Daggerfall,
area?
Morrowind, and like whole like saga with like what was it, Uriel Septim and his life basically. It's when his life ends, and you essentially take on the position as the hero of Kavach to find the missing heir, basically the bastard son. And from there, you basically have to close shut the jaws of Oblivion and relight the dragon fires which is only capable if you crown the next emperor, essentially. But you have to deal with Miriam's Dagon along the way, and like his minions, and what was it, Mankar Cameron or something like that? I think he's like the no, not really the main bad guy, but he's like the one that's opposing you throughout it. And you have like the Mythic Dawn, who's this cult that you have to like deal with as well. Because the moment they realize who you are and what you're doing, all these cult members just come out of the shadows and start attacking you at random.
Oh my
Especially,
god.
oh my god! If you
No.
have what was it, Martin with you during some parts, like whenever you're doing the escort quest and you don't just like travel back to Coral, like the Wayon Priory, there will be people that just attack you at that moment in time. They're like, "Holy shit! It's the bastard son! Get him!"
They can attack you almost anywhere. It's
No.
very weird. There's also a part where I was in like the Cloud Temple where you're with Arthur,
Wait,
and I
you
go
got attacked in the
outside.
Cloud Temple?
Hmm?
Wait, oh wait, outside. Wait, hold on. Was it? There's like a quest though that deals with that, where you actually have to like deal with spies and whatnot because they're like spying on the temple and Martin and everything, and you have to like deal with them because they're in Bruma. It wasn't like spies in Bruma or something like that. Part of like the main quest.
There was that, but I'm talking about when they're just passively like spawning in and this and that. I'm just saying that there was a point where I was at in Bruma, and you go into a random, just like one of the nearby buildings near where like Arthur and them are studying and everything, and they'll just attack you out of nowhere, just in random buildings. Hell, I'll even go into like the guard shack, and they'll just appear next to me while I'm going in
It
there.
almost reminds me of the assassins from Skyrim before you actually join the Dark Brotherhood, and they just like show up at random times. It's fucking great.
No.
But
It kind of reminds me of how the Yuga clan is in Breath of the Wild.
pretty
They're just kind
much.
of there.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Okay.
Except they just look like they basically look more shady and more like just like, hey kid, come here, but
You want a
they
piece of
just jump
candy?
you. But they don't say anything. They just make like groaning noises. Sometimes they jump you out the fucking shady corner, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's like you're just like walking along, and all of a sudden, this man dressed in like Daedric armor pops out of nowhere, and you're like, "What the fuck?"
Like you're just literally talking to a vendor at a stall. You're just like, all right, yeah, let me get some cheese, and they're like, die. You're like,
It's like,
wait,
"Die, motherfucker!"
and you're like, it's 9 in the morning. Why are you
It's like
here?
death knows no time. Oh my gosh! And then the magic in that game is fucking broken, and it's fucking great. Cause like, holy shit! If you ever watch any of the exploit videos, like, holy shit, they can do some wild ass fucking shit with the magic. It's also like, I think because they got rid of the feature in Skyrim, if I'm not mistaken, where you can actually create your own spells.
That's cool. That sounds cool.
It was very cool.
Um,
The only downside I
Sounds
will
very cool.
say to Oblivion versus Skyrim is that you are locked in a class kind of thing. Almost like with like, not quite like D&D, but like you have your 7 major skills, which is what you actually level up through with the game, and you have the minor skills which don't actually matter too much because again, like, they don't count towards your level up progress, but your 7 major skills do. And it can be a bit of a pain in the ass if you pick the wrong ones to level up, because some of those skills aren't easy to level up in. Like Mercantile, I absolutely hate leveling up in Mercantile. It's very good when you get up to like higher levels, but it's a pain in the fucking ass. Oh, and then let's
It's
not
a
forget
pain in
the.
the ass. It's so boring. Just sometimes when you're trying to grind through just a single merchant just to get his
okay,
stuff
so
up,
you
and
kind
then
of
you
have to
fuck up
like
and
focus
click the
on
wrong cycle.
balancing properly then for things to.
God, at least
Almost.
leveling up your speechcraft in Oblivion isn't as difficult as doing lockpicking. I don't know
I
about
hate lockpicking.
everyone
Oh my
else.
gosh.
In that game, at least, I hate it. Every other game, it's great. It's even the lockpicking system is the same as it is in Fallout as it is in Skyrim, and
Well,
it's easy.
I don't mind the lockpicking. The only thing I say that why is because the moment I hit level 10, I immediately go to do Nocturnal's quest and get the skeleton key. Because the moment I have that fucking thing, I can just force like auto attempt every single time. I don't have to worry because it's a fucking lockpick that never breaks.
Just spam it.
Yep, just spam it. I'm like, nope, I don't care. I don't fucking care. It's why I don't ever pick lockpicking as my major skill, because I know I'm going to get Nocturnal's key, like the skeleton key. Because I
That's fair.
cannot handle the lockpicking in that game.
Also, how can you say Magic and Oblivion's the best when they've banned levitation, but you can use levitation magic in Morrowind?
Okay, like, to be fair, also, they didn't really. They. like they didn't really incorporate into like the game because they're trying to do, I guess, more but also less at the same time. And like Morrowind was like this big thing too. Like it give you a lot of freedom and whatnot, but like I don't mind not having the levitation spell personally. Like it's nice, and you get to like cool areas, and they had all like the fun little like hidden stuff in Morrowind. I will at least give you that where they really do what is it? It kind of like reward your exploration for that. And Oblivion does in some cases. Like there's some quests where you actually do have to go out and explore, or there are these like little things where you, I don't know where you find it, but I know there's just like, I don't know if it's an unmarked quest or the case may be, but there's like
How
this
are the
skeleton. Hold on one moment. There's like a skeleton sitting next to a chest and I think a book. I don't really remember the exact details because it's been a long time since I've seen it, but it's basically a chest and a note that says congratulations for going off the path and like exploring. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. And it gives you some fun little stuff. I don't remember what. I think it might be random loot, but I can't say for certain. But I know it's in the game, but I just don't know.
Hey,
You know.
at least when I go into Morrowind and just like not even a minute and a half into the game after I create my character, just go straight down the road. I get my 3 scrolls of levitation, and then not even a minute later, I one-way plane ticket to freaking Solstice.
Hey, take what you will then. But no, I mean, to be fair, there's also like fast travel as well in Oblivion, where you
Then
can go
again,
anywhere almost right
Solstheim,
off the bat.
yeah. Then again, Solstheim, it's kind of like it's not like it is in Skyrim. I'm sure it's DLC, and you want to beat it, play it later in the game, but it's not as daunting in Skyrim as it is in Morrowind. In Morrowind, you're like, please no, not the angry beast nords again, not the bears, not the bears.
Well, Skyrim's also a bit of an easier game too. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that right now because, like, in terms of difficulty, I can say Morrowind is definitely of the three. Morrowind's probably the most difficult of them. Oblivion is probably a close second to that, just because there's a lot in Oblivion. Like the little fine details, like your armor and weapons can break. Enchanting is a it's a little bit of a pain in Oblivion, like trying to keep your charge up, the cost of it and everything. It's just very taxing. It's not as I never had a good time trying to make money in Oblivion, at least until the Shivering Isles DLC, which made it easier for me to make money. But like up until that point, I always had a difficult time making money in Oblivion, personally. So enchanting was not a fun thing for me, or having enchanted items. Yeah. Again, like until the Shivering Isles DLC, which, of course, like you go into Sheogorath's realm, it's fucking gorgeous compared to Oblivion. Because like I get with Oblivion, they were going for more of like a medieval Europe night kind of thing, and you really definitely get that feel with like alien ruins kind of scattered about. It gives that magic kind of touch, but in comparison to like the Shivering Isles DLC, the Shivering Isles is just so fucking beautiful because you got Mania with all its bright and vibrant colors, and you have Dementia that's very dark and dreary, but even darker than like the tones for just Cyrodiil in general. And then, of course, you have the Mad Lord himself, Sheogorath, which fucking phenomenal. Like I tried playing the game before getting the DLC again, and trying to do the Shogora's Daedric quest without his actual voice actor, the one before the DLC. I'm like, no, I can't do it. It's not the same. You need to have. It's such a different voice, and I'm like, I can't do it. I fucking can't. Like his voice is so fucking iconic to him now that I, if I'm not mistaken, it's the same voice actor in Elder Scrolls Online when they do have Sheogorath, and he shows up so fucking much too. I kid you not, I've played so much of Elder Scrolls Online, and that man shows up everywhere, and it's fucking great.
Just give the man his fucking cheese.
Oh my
So I remember
gosh.
you mentioned something about there being vampires in the games at one point.
Yes,
That
it's in
they're in all
Morrowind.
of them,
Yeah.
but for the most part, they become pretty prevalent in Skyrim the most because with one of the DLCs, you can actually delve more into it and not only obviously become a vampire because you can already become a vampire, but it's more of a hindrance than it is like
I was gonna say
oh, this is
like
a role play aspect. Like I can now make this a sub kind of like race kind of thing. No, but in Skyrim, since they have the option to where you can become a vampire lord essentially, which is a beast transformation, one of the main two that they have in the game, along with becoming a werewolf.
And I will say, like, don't play Skyrim before getting the Dawnguard DLC if you want to be a vampire, because it just really is a pain in the ass. Um, It almost goes back to like how it is in Morrowind that the moment you become a vampire, like no one will talk to you except for like was it like two people if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's more akin to that, but you just take it up one extra
Mm.
degree. But I think it's when you hit stage 3. It might be 2, but I think it's 3. But the moment you hit like stage 3 of your vampirism, people will immediately turn hostile to you when they see you, and it's woo, it's not fun.
So
It's
kind of like
interesting.
they immediately see you as a threat.
Basically,
Yeah, but a few days in the game has to pass. I honestly, personally, never really even get to that point. Like, I don't even make it like a habit of like going into like just going up to sneaking. You can sneak into sleeping NPCs' houses and feed on them through the night during the night, and it'll satisfy you for like a few days, basically, if not like 2 or 3 days. But what I did and what I recommend if you're going to try and go through a vampire route, which honestly is really fun, the only hindrance is fire resistance, in my opinion.
hit
Uh,
fire burns.
yeah, that's the only thing you would have to get some resistant armor or some spell like that.
Or like
Um,
just don't really go against or try not to go against spellcasters or flame atronachs or dragons. Woo,
which
dragons.
can be kind of hard if you want to go straight from that DLC into the other main DLC, which is called Dragonborn, because a lot of the cultists use fire magic.
To be fair, a lot of it's like frost spells and fire spells are the two big spell types that people use in that game. The NPCs at least. Like, holy fuck. Like, I've never. I think because I always played as a Nord when I initially played through the game, so like you have that frost resistance. But I never. Also, the archer part, the archer. But I never realized up until the point where I tried to play like a non Nord, like up in your face warrior type of build, that I hate the frost spells with a motherfucking passion. Because
Why so? How bad it can
they
get?
slow you down. And I'm going to tell you right
That's
now,
fun.
my biggest pet peeve in any RPG game, it doesn't matter if you're MMO, single player, whatever the fuck the case may be, my hate is, like, the one debuff I hate the most is slow. I hate being slowed so fucking much. So, like, you go, I don't remember how much it, like, slows you down, but it fucking slows you down. Then it drains your stamina on top of that, so you can't even
Yeah.
sprint on top of that.
Yeah.
So, no, yeah, I fucking hate that shit.
Hey, so like you were saying earlier
Same.
with scaling for like the 4 stages of like vampirism, like if you aren't to feed for like a couple of days and you get to stage 4, which is when people start noticing. There's one where people start like may or may not passively aggressive aggro on you. I think at stage 3 out of 4 for when you've gone so long without feeding
Right.
that they might notice and say, you're a vampire, this, that, or get scared of that. And then stage 4, they full on to straight up attack you on sight. But there's also pros to that, too, if you want to play on that side, because you already have a base 25% resistance to frost damage just by having the vampire, being a vampire. And then if you get Vampire Lord,
Yeah, but fire
you can
hurts.
get 50. Fire does hurt. That's why I said you want to get the fire resistance. But if you were to try and go for that early, uh, my best advice is to honestly try and grind through that DLC early on, such as I did. And once you have the rings that you get from doing a side quest that you can finish literally as soon as you beat the main story for that DLC, then you can get 2 rings that you can put on both at the same time, and they'll up your magic and up your health by 100 points, which is kind of a huge thing.
Or you do what I did and you do the fortify restoration loop.
Yes, that is what I plan on doing. But if you want to have something in the meantime, you can do that.
I mean,
Which
to be
in
fair, like the moment you get alchemy to level like 40 on its thing and you get the perks you need, it's so fucking easy to do though.
I think
Like
I have all the materials. I just need to amp it up. I might do that later today, honestly.
oh yeah, which and then going back to the vampire thing real quick before I go into something else. So Skull, for Oblivion, it's kind of I guess a bit of a detriment in my opinion, just because of how I tend to play the game and how much it has scarred me. Trauma. But whenever you play as a vampire in Oblivion, you can't go out during the day at all. And if I'm not mistaken, you can't really fast travel either. Because, well, you die. The moment you step outside, you start dying.
Oblivion, I don't even see a point in it.
Yeah, no, it's
But
definitely not a thing you want.
Skyrim, at least you're this buff creature that has weathered wings basically, and you kind of half fly, like you float along the land, and you could fly over water, which makes a lot of early main quests very easy. Like, honestly, it helps you to even beat the DLC because you can go get the Elder Scroll you need for the main story really early on without having to swim through the water. And on top of that, there's a lot of really OP spells that you can use as a vampire lord. Like, there's one that's just a straight ball of damage that just does lifesteal. Like, once the enemy dies, you get a big thing of health from them.
Eh.
Oh.
I really like it. And
Well, okay, my
once you max
question
out your
is
final vampire perk, there's a
Well,
passive cloud of bats that just life steals off of any enemies that are within just a short range.
well, here's the thing. So I didn't see much of a point in the magic, but my question is, did you put points into like destruction to increase? Like, does that impact it
Yes.
at all? Okay, that's why.
Yes, that's
So
that
like,
effective.
you've kind of got to invest into being a mage if you want to like really do the vampire thing effectively. Because if you're gonna go around doing like a warrior type build, it's really not that great when it
To be
comes to
honest,
it.
I believe I only have a 40 in destruction, which isn't that high.
Yeah,
Isn't
but have you
werewolf
Doing
invested
pretty well.
points? That's my question.
isn't like werewolf better for melee? That's me going off of pure
For
memory.
melee, yes, it can be if
Yes.
that's what you're going for.
So the only so as someone who actively played as a werewolf, even prior to the DLCs, it is good. There's just like one thing you got to keep in mind is that you don't regenerate health when you're in werewolf form. To my knowledge, I think you needed to actually have rings from the Dragonborn DLC, and you had to go to Solstheim to get them. Because there's like a werewolf pack where you can get these like werewolf specific rings, very similar to like the vampire rings you can get from completing the Dawnguard DLC. Um,
Let's see.
yeah, werewolves got that with a Dragonborn DLC, which they're very nice to have. Actually, I kid you not, like they're fucking phenomenal. And if you're going to be running a werewolf build, I highly recommend that you do get them because they do make life a lot easier. Especially for me, that when I initially played through as a werewolf, every time I transformed outside, I attracted a dragon, and I was not happy about that. It kind of like turned me away from turning into a werewolf.
Oh, fun fact about this, you guys, and Skull. The main thing I did before I even beat the Dawn Guard DLC was I specifically chose not to go defeat the first dragon, which is a very early on mainline quest, just so I could go throughout a lot of the game without having any dragons. Because that's one of the biggest hindrances,
I mean, to be
honestly, when
fair,
you're trying to travel.
you
Or at least
also
early on it is.
I mean, you also get like interesting dialogue options too for like if you haven't actually completed like the main quest and things like that. Because I know like Mirak will taunt you if you haven't killed Alduin yet, or like if you haven't discovered that you're Dragonborn yet, Durnavir will like comment about that, how he feels like there's something special about you. But like you don't really realize that you're Dragonborn yet, but he does. So like it's kind of cool doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So like no, there's fun little things.
Also, honestly, my favorite thing to do as a vampire lord, and it's one of the like cheesiest things, is the force grip magic spell, where you can
Oh, the
honestly just
yeet
be Darth
spell.
Vader, take somebody, literally grab them, yeet them in any direction you want.
That's
They go
okay.
pretty
Look,
high,
that was the best
and
part
then
about
you can
Vampire.
run kill a lot of enemies with that. To be honest,
That was the best part about Vampire. I'm not gonna lie. Like that was the one spell I absolutely loved. Cause like you just, of course, you do like the force grip thing, and then it's like yeet, and you could just like throw them into a fucking hole, and it was great.
and then there's even like self recovery
Oh.
spells that you can use for that. But a main thing,
Oh.
what I was trying to say earlier, sorry, that I was trying to remember was you don't have to have a lot of points into destruction itself. It's more so you just need to have a lot of magicka,
Yeah,
which is
again, but
a
like
big reason why I get that 100-point magicka ring that you get at the end.
again, so like something that's probably a lot better for obviously more magic focused builds, battle mages, things like that. But if you're running builds like I do, which is like pure stamina and health builds, which is like your archers and your tanks essentially, like yeah, no, like it's not really good for me personally to be a vampire.
I mean, when you got all your spells cracked out from your restoration glitch, I mean, why not?
Exactly. Making use
Do a
of that
magicka
glitch.
regen of infinite magicka and you're good.
But why? I don't
What do
like the
you mean?
magic in the game. It's so fucking awful.
I love the magic.
I
I'm
hate the
going to
magic.
assume that
I'll-
going werewolf or vampire is completely optional.
Yes, it's completely optional.
It's
So,
completely
well,
out.
okay, here's the thing though. So, with the Dawnguard DLC, you have your choice becoming a vampire lord and siding with the Buccaneer vampire clan, or you can side with the Dawnguard. So, that is definitely a choice. If there's any point you don't ever
What
want to
about the
be,
base game?
base game, you can be. If you ever come across like a vampire in the wild and it attacks you with its drain life spell, you can get infected with the vampire's disease, and if you don't cure it within I think it's like 3 days, you turn into a vampire. And anytime you want to get rid of it, you have to bring this
Like,
guy a filled black soul gem, and you can only fill the black soul gems with like human souls, essentially, like human myrrh and that kind of thing. Uh, with werewolves, on the other hand, it's kind of necessary to complete the quest line for the companions if you choose to join them, which is basically Skyrim's equivalent of the Fighters Guild, but not, because it's not as great. Um, but no, yeah, like you do have to become a werewolf in the companions quest line, but you do have an option at the end of the quest line to purge yourself of werewolf disease, basically.
Same thing with Dawnguard as well. If you want to choose the vampire side just because you like that side better for that storyline, you can do that, and then once you finish the quest line, you can purge yourself of it. Or
Well,
you can
here's the thing,
also
like, if you
just
do
purge
purge
yourself of it in
yourself
general.
before you do, like, the side quest for the people, they won't talk to you anymore, saying that you're not worth their time because you're not one of them. So, uh, that's also
You
another
just
thing
have
to consider.
to complete the next quest, and then if you were to go to companion, or basically you'd have to get to yourself to this like middle point in the storyline where Serana can offer to like bite you to give you the power, and then anytime, even if you were to purge yourself by going to the companions and just like purging yourself before you were to become a werewolf, then you can do that as well.
alright, so you guys have talked a lot about some of the DLCs, but what's the appeal of the base game?
Who's drawn out? The
I think you
shouts,
I
shouts
will.
are a big
You guys
thing.
are literally starting to do the exact same thing that they were doing with Fallout.
Yeah, but to be fair, we're tangenting on gameplay and not just heavy
That's
lore.
true. We are talking about fucking gameplay, so you can't say we're doing the same thing when we actually are talking about fucking gameplay. So there, it's not lore, it's gameplay. It is
Yeah,
different.
it's still training off about one thing.
I'll be very, very fair. It is kind of in the same category of like almost in the same category. Like, yeah, you're kind of selling the gameplay, but at the same time, like, there's other aspects of the game. Like, is it how it looks and also how
Okay,
it
here's
presents
my
itself.
thing though. When it comes to a game, it shouldn't matter how it looks. It should matter
Hmm.
about the gameplay itself, as well as the story. But the problem is, when you go into Skyrim, you're going for the game itself. I mean,
Yeah.
how often do people go into the game and don't even do the fucking main storyline until they've done everything else in the fucking game? There's really not much of a story outside of like all the other mini stories and everything. That's
Yeah.
kind of the thing with these games. The appeal isn't so much about the story itself, but it's just the world that you're in and exploring
Yeah,
it. It is the gameplay. And like, don't
it's
get
the
me wrong,
same
it's
thing as the Fallout games as it is with Elder Scrolls games. That it's the characters and the different factions and
eh,
people that you find. A lot of the time, it's what builds the charm of each game, and honestly, is what keeps you interested in it. Along with, for Skyrim specifically, there's some great background music along with it too. That you can just find yourself wandering throughout different lands, just talking to people, helping them out on weird little quests, and you end up going down rabbit holes sometimes.
yeah, as I was saying, 'cause, like with if you really want a story, a game for the story, that's when you play something like Oblivion. But there's not really a whole bunch of like, like interesting stories. Like the main quest line in Skyrim is very short. Like
Well, I
Yeah.
even
would say
shorter than Dragon Age Inquisition, and that's
I,
pitiful at that. So I'm
I
gonna
would
say that
say as
now.
well, there are a lot of references to older games that I didn't pick up on until I even dabbled. Just I only played maybe 10 hours of Morrowind so far in my main save, and there's so much I already know from the game and watching like one or two videos that I've realized there are a few side quests in Skyrim that are optional that just make the game so much more fulfilling and just great to play just because of it.
Eh.
Well, you have to play or at least understand the reference to get it, which is part of it.
Okay,
Eh.
that
No, I
seems like a fanboy thing. I will
Yeah, that
admit.
I have to
I'm
agree with
not
Ruthless here.
insult,
That's definitely a
I'm
fanboy
not
thing.
insulting. I'm not insulting it because I will admit I am a comic book fanboy. I love when someone like some writer reference shit from like or even a movie reference it. But like I'll have to admit it's a fanboy thing. It's a fanboy thing. I will take I'll take shit for when I am fanboy. But
what
it
about
is
when they give you a quest to go get the main weapon you used to defeat the bad guy in one of the other games in the new game?
Eh.
a bit of a fanboy moment. I would have to like it's a bit of a fanboy moment. Again, I don't think it's bad. I think that makes it cool. But
I mean,
if it's like the big draw of the game, it's definitely gonna be a little bit of a problem.
that kind of depends on the game too, because as someone who's played Lightning Returns of the Final Fantasy franchise, like 13, that was purely fan service, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. But that was that's besides the point. But like going back to like Skyrim.
It's the same
Yeah, I
thing.
will have to say
It's the
that's
same
like
thing.
again, if we're judging, like if we're trying to say is it overall good, and if it is it like something that can like I kind of would say like fan service decent, but at the same time, if you have only just that, I can see someone make the argument of it being trash. I won't make that argument because I physically can't. I'm not a fan. Like I don't like doing that. if it's like something is fan service, like fan service like that.
Also, aside from just some of the stories and like side quests that might keep you interested, there are a lot of oddball NPCs and specifically Oblivion and Skyrim that can just catch you off guard and just depending what you're doing in the
More
game, make you just
Oblivion than
change
Skyrim, in my opinion.
make you change your whole entire plan you had because you could just be already pissed off because you're trying to like defeat a certain quest or something that you haven't been able to do, so you go off grinding. But then like someone like Bazim comes around and like insults you, and then you just start attacking the whole town and reloading a save.
Well, that's a problem with you than the actual character. I'm sorry, I'm gonna be the one to say that. Like, I hate Nazim as much as the next person, but like, I don't go around doing that shit.
Well, I'm just giving an example. I mean, there's other characters too that
I
are
don't
just
know,
like
they
weird
don't feel
characters.
as fleshed out as in like even Oblivion wasn't as fleshed out, but like there's still more, I don't know, I wouldn't say interesting people, but like it's just not their characters are not quite as interesting. Like the only people I really remember are the assholes in that game. And it's mainly Maven Blackbriar because I hate that bitch with a passion. But regardless, like I don't really remember a whole lot of the other characters. Like even the ones that are like, important, I'm just like, "Oh, you're there. I don't fucking care." Like again, like the only other person like outside from Maven Blackbriar would probably be Serana because Serana is such a big draw of the Dawnguard DLC and probably of the game in general. Let's be fair. When it comes to like companions and characters, I'm Brandyoff. Let's be fair, because that accent is just fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be fair there.
So
Like Brandyoff is just fine.
so it seems like the charming so the biggest appeal of the I can see the biggest appeal of the Skyrim franchise is the mixture of the charmingness of the wonky shit and the glitches that's just funny that
Probably the
exists.
same reason why anyone would play Fallout, like Fallout 3 or Fallout 4. It's just for the world itself, for the open world, like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Like the glitches come afterwards as people begin to actually play the game and see what the fuck's wrong with it and get to actually enjoy,
No.
breaking the
Yeah.
game. But
Yeah,
Even though
newer games, it's
even
fun
though
to
by
see
the
a lot
time
of the different dialogue options you get just from choosing a different race. Even albeit half the time in Skyrim, at the very least, they could just be trash talking. It's still a fun aspect to see time to time, at least.
I don't know. I mean, as someone who probably hasn't sunk as many hours into Skyrim as the next person, like it does get very boring after a while once you've done everything at least once. Like literally again, the only draw to it to me is just that beginning grind. up until you actually get to like a powerful point, and then it just kind of like falls off. Because again, like there's not really too much about it that's very compelling. Like at least so like for Oblivion, like you have the main storyline where you have to help Martin relight the dragon fires and save all of Tamriel from Mehrunes Dagon. Like the stakes are high and like that's interesting. Um Even in Skyrim, you have to stop Alduin from basically completing his task as the World Eater and ending the world. Like that's cool, but like I don't know, it just didn't feel the same as having to stop the Prince of Destruction. And I think what made it a little bit more cooler in Oblivion is that you actually had the Oblivion gates showing up from time to time at random points, and then did increase after a certain point in the game. Of course, it capped out after I think like a certain amount of gates. But regardless, like there was that draw, like you felt that threat. And even though you have the dragons, they're yeah, nuisance in the early game, but the problem is they're not really that much later on. Like once you're powerful enough, like the dragons are nothing. Especially once you have the dragon wrench out. But
Well,
like again, like even with the quest, like the side quests, the guilds, like there's not much to the guilds in Skyrim versus Oblivion. Like Oblivion does drag them on. Don't get me wrong, there like the guild quest lines are unnecessarily long in my opinion, but there is a little bit more to them than just well as basic as they are in Skyrim. Because I mean, the Dark Brotherhood's just about dead. You're somehow the listener. It's like surprise, you're the listener. You need to basically restore order, but Astrid's stopping you along the way. But then you eventually do it anyway after trying to like assassinate the Emperor. Which again, it's cool at first, but then it's like, do I have to do this again? And like the Thieves Guild building them back up because someone pissed off Nocturnal and she cursed him with bad luck. Like I don't know, it just and then the companions like it's literally just fighting the Silver Hand. Like that's pretty much it. Like there's not really too much else. And then you have to wonder like are they not justified in trying to kill some werewolves that could go crazy? Like I don't know. It compared to like Oblivion, stuff like the Fighters Guild, where like again, it is a Fighters Guild. You're rising in the ranks, and you come to get closer. Like you get better jobs, and you actually feel like you're progressing. Then like so much happens within the guild. You're dealing with the Blackwood Company and their whole little hissap business, where they feed this hissap to their mercenaries, and it makes them go fucking nuts. And they just completely massacre everyone. Like it's a big problem. You have to deal with that. Or just like in the Dark Brotherhood, there where you have to deal with a traitor amongst their ranks that is switching out your orders, so you actually assassinate people of like the higher members of the Dark Brotherhood up until you're finally caught, and then they're like, oh wait. We need to like root out this traitor because we all fucked up, essentially. Or even like with the Thieves Guild, where you're literally just being a thief up until the point where the Grey Fox takes notice of you, and he's like, "Hey, I can use you. You help me get what I want, and I'll help you become like guildmaster in place of me." Which then turns out to be something really cool, as you get to steal a motherfucking Elder Scroll in that game. Like, it's satisfying. It's long, but it's satisfying essentially, and it's not as satisfying in Skyrim, basically.
I do have to
So,
say, sorry, go on.
so by just hearing it, so for like someone who's just wanting to get into the that world setting in the world itself, would you recommend Obsidian first, or would you recommend Skyrim first?
So then
Oblivion, if we want to go in order, I would say.
I'd say more Skyrim if you just want a more modern, like open world RPG game where you can just go out and explore the world and things like that. But if you want to kind of experience some of the franchise's beginnings, because again, if you really want to go back that far, that's Morrowind for you. And Morrowind can be a difficult game to play, especially if you've been fucking babied like me and you have all the quest markers and things like that on a map where you're not going to have that at all in Morrowind, so like I don't like it. I've
Part of
tried.
it with a difference between the two is also there's a lot of dungeon exploring in Skyrim, and each one is quite different. A lot of them can be the same. Yeah, you got joggers in the beginning of a lot of them,
The layout's
but a
basically almost the
repetitive
same.
thing I've seen with Oblivion is that a lot of them it's just like, oh, it's the same underground trenches again and again and again for
I
a
mean,
lot of it.
Skyrim's not too much better in some cases. Like there is more uniqueness amongst Skyrim, but they're also a lot shorter.
Yeah, but at least you got a little bit of variety on top of like having all the different dungeons and cave systems like that. You also got all the you have all the Dwemer runes too to go and search, and even
I
if
mean, fuck the
it's
Dwemer runes.
not always the best rewards, like going into it for the first time when you don't know much about it, it's always just like seeing all the different creatures and just like certain traps. It's a different vibe than going into certain caves and stuff like that. And like you're like, oh, I know there's gonna be a pressure plate here.
So
Oh
I'm
yeah, I know
gonna
that
disagree with you here because this is more coming from how Oblivion scarred me, and I think Oblivion does dungeons better than Skyrim, despite the fact that Oblivion does reuse a lot of the same stuff for, especially like their alien, temples and ruins and stuff like that, and especially like some caves and whatnot. The atmosphere is what makes it really good because the lighting in the game is much darker than Skyrim, which makes you really feel like you're alone in that darkness, unless there's like torches and whatnot lighting your way. And the fact that the music is so much creepier in Oblivion when it comes to the actual dungeon delving. And I kid you not, like that shit freaked me out when I was younger. When I had to listen to it when I went into the caves, like or any kind of like dungeon or anything. I usually had to like mute my TV because I couldn't handle like the suspense in the music it was building, the like eerie, ominous feeling it had with it. Like literally, there was one point when I was playing the game when I was like a teenager. Uh, and I'm literally just going through this dungeon. All of a sudden, this like rat comes up and bites me in the ass. I literally jumped off my seat and fell on the fucking floor.
Hmm.
So like
I will
I
say too, it might be a difference of which one you play first. Also, a little bit.
I don't know, like I mean I feel like most people could be able to see that too. Like Skyrim is a very easy game in comparison to. Like there's not much of a curve unless you actually like switch up the difficulties and whatnot. But even then I've seen people, and I'm someone who doesn't fucking give a damn and I'll just play on easy, judge me. But I've seen people easily play on like expert and legendary without much issue, and I'm like, oh, okay. Whereas like
Well, that's
if
the
you
reason I find the ancient dragons and stuff more of a challenge later on. Is I personally just like to gradually increase the difficulty when I first played early on.
Well, but here's
But
the thing: like, it's completely different from something like Morrowind and Oblivion. Because I get you now, when people would like talk about going back and playing Morrowind, the first thing they would say, turn the difficulty all the way down to nothing. Like, set it to the easiest you can, because Morrowind will fuck you over, and it does. It absolutely does. That's another reason why I don't like Morrowind, because it fucks you over with those dice rolls. It's literally D&D, but not as fun. I'm saying it. Morrowind is not as fun as Dungeons and Dragons.
I don't think any of the Elder Scrolls games can really compare that much to it.
Wait, wait, Mario was its own unique thing, but like it really is just like Dungeons and Dragons with the way
Well,
that it
yeah.
deals with the dice rolls, which is why I say like it is different from obviously the next ones in line, but like I would not recommend Morrowind. Like if you played it when you were younger, that's fine, but like I wouldn't recommend going back and playing Morrowind, especially with like just how some of the controls can be. But I mean, it also just kind of depends on what you want because I know there's a lot more story and atmosphere in Morrowind. There's not. There's some of it in Oblivion, but like I don't know. There's also well, gameplay's okay. It's a lot of fighting, but like it's okay.
Morrowind does have a very good story
Yeah.
that I still need to fully play through and learn
Basically,
more about it.
what you're saying is picking a game in the Elder Scrolls series is like a choose your own adventure type thing.
It's exactly that. It's basically
Exactly.
like that.
Like here's
Kind
a
of like
perfect example I will say for going back to even the first two games, because most of the games you start out as a prisoner, but specifically from the first Elder Scrolls game, Arena, going into Daggerfall, it is a direct continuation of that character. That character is the same person going into the next story, unlike any of the other Elder Scrolls games where it's a completely new person arriving in this land, whether they be a traveler or a prisoner.
Okay,
And
but
a big thing that was a huge curve that um, they had to do when they were even making Daggerfall, or going from Daggerfall and onward, was how they wanted to end it, because at the end of Daggerfall for the second Elder
Well, yes,
Scrolls game,
they
they
did the time
had.
break, but look, let's stop away. Let's step away from the lore. We're trying to like stay away
I
from
mean,
the.
no, I was literally just gonna summarize it. I was just gonna say they had like basically 6 endings and a secret ending, and they
Yeah, because of
all
the
did
dragon
different
break.
things. Yeah,
That's
and
all you
then
have to say.
no, I know, but they don't understand what happens because I was just gonna say that what they were going to do is they were gonna go through a whole thing of like, all right, you're gonna bring this character specific ending to the next game, but instead of doing that, they said, fuck it, all the endings canonically happened at once at the end of that choose your own adventure. So no matter which ending you choose at the end of Daggerfall, all of them are canon in the ongoing timeline.
I'm pretty sure they didn't care, but thank you. Again, like it was
Mhm.
not really focusing so much on the earlier games. Like they did exist, but like I'm certainly not gonna go back and play them because again, like just the vibe with them, and like I don't think I'd be able to personally. But like as Skull said, it really is a choose your own adventure. It ultimately is like with I don't know. It feels like like if you want a lot of story but are willing to put up with like the janky gameplay, not really gameplay, but like janky controls and stuff like that. Because trying to play it on Xbox One is not easy. Let me tell you, sitting there trying to figure out what half the controls actually do. But
I
I'd say,
haven't found it that terrible.
oh, I had a difficult time. I had an absolute difficult time. But I mean, it's got a very diverse magic system. The combat again, it's still wonky because again, it's the dice rolls. It's D&D, but Morrowind essentially. Oblivion is a step up because they take away like those random dice rolls. If you actually like hit your character or not. But like they also introduced like a whole bunch of other mechanics and things like that. Magic took a little bit of a nerf, but it's still stronger than Skyrim. I will continue saying that. Fight me.
I
Um,
mean, it is stronger, but I just like I like a lot of the aesthetics of Skyrim in terms of the magic, and I do like how, even though it can be a pain in the ass, how you do need just a lot more magicka to get a lot of the higher spells, and it does suck that they did remove the magic creation, which is still something I have to experience because I haven't done that even myself.
yeah, it's still regardless. Even once you're at the higher levels, like I still say Magic was better in Oblivion, but there's still more of a story in Oblivion, especially when looking at its guild quest lines. It's still very long. Don't get me wrong; it's very long. Like, oh my gosh, like there's some quest lines in Oblivion, like for the guilds, I would never do again, just because of how long they were and tedious at the same time. It's kind of like when I go back to play Dragon Age Origins, and I have such an issue trying to go through and do dwarves whole quest line because of how long it is, and it's just so fucking boring.
Oh my god, I've seen people try go through, basically explain to go through the Dark Brotherhood questline in Oblivion, and you have to reach at least certain parts of the game just to get to later parts of it, just because a lot of it becomes repetitive. But then once you get to a certain part of the story, is where the eeriness really kicks in with it.
If you want to call it eerie, but like
Well,
it
I
is
don't
kind
know.
of just the thing. It is repetitive, like the I don't know, and like you kind of take away some of those repetitive aspects in Skyrim, but also not really. Like with the Thieves Guild, you still have to go out and like try and build the guild back up and things like that. And like a lot of those quests are repetitive too, like a lot of Radiance and I don't know. Like Skyrim, I definitely say Skyrim's biggest appeal is its open world and just like that whole aspect. It is a very gorgeous game. Do not get me wrong, but I will
Part of it
say
with Oblivion is how they go deep with one of the later missions when you have to go check in on this family, and it's just the detail they basically put into the models for like how they're like disemboweled and stuff. I know it's kind of like weird stuff. It's just like the eeriness of this, like, oh shit, like that happened,
again,
essentially.
that's why I say it traumatized me when I was younger because like it's definitely scarier than Skyrim is. That's why I say like Oblivion is definitely better in terms of like atmosphere and just that setting the mood kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like when you go in reverse of the timeline with the games, you just get more and more corrupt looking, not just little like models like that just sit there, but even like in Morrowind, there's some NPCs that you see how they're transformed and morphed from like a normal dark elf into this dark creature with just a hole in its face.
Ew.
Yeah, they basically become a cross between a dark elf and like what those seeker things look like. That what was the name of the Dragonborn from the Dragonborn DLC?
What, Mirak?
Mirak, yes, his seeker
I'm
things.
so
It's basically
disappointed in you now.
I'm tired.
I
You're
think
tired.
I was about to say I don't think you get
You're
the.
tired.
I'm also tired, and I'm not
Yeah.
complaining.
I was gonna say like I
There's
don't.
something
I
with
think
us.
Skull is the one that actually has a right to complain about being tired,
Yeah.
Yeah,
considering the meds that he's on. But that's besides the point.
Yeah.
yeah. No, just Molag Bal kept popping in my head. I'm like, why am I thinking Molag Bal? And I'm trying to think the name of the freaking Dragonborn. I was just playing that DLC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like yeah.
I'll be right back.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, like again, this is just us. So I know while we wait for Skull, I know we were talking about why like like we're trying to like sell it to him. But like this is again just a general discussion on Bethesda too.
Yeah.
It's like that's also
They
something to
mainly
remember.
Yeah, I was gonna go ahead and ask. I mean, we can talk about it once we finish up talking about Elder Scrolls. I was gonna say if anyone has anything remarkable to say about the Doom franchise at all.
The what?
If either of you, if either of you have played any of the Doom games,
Is Doom even Bethesda?
yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
Huh. Didn't know that.
okay.
it
I
got
mean,
acquisitioned kind of like Fallout did, like back in
Oh.
the very early 2000s.
Oh. Well, I didn't play Doom, so.
Okay, well, just thought I'd ask.
I have.
Have you played a lot of the
Well,
early ones, a lot of the newer ones?
newer ones. I've played a few of the early ones.
Okay. Well, once we're wrapping up with Elder Scrolls, we can touch a little bit upon that if you want to.
To be fair, we probably could just go right now because like there's really not a whole lot more you can say about the Elder Scrolls unless you actually want to get into the lore or if you want to talk about like Elder Scrolls Online. But even then, that's a big toss up for a lot of people because ESO can be seen as a ZeniMax game. Even though obviously like it's a Bethesda property because it is Elder Scrolls, but like it is manned by ZeniMax, which is
We
on
could just give
servers.
a quick on like a small con and bad and a small opinion on that if you want.
Uh, Con, it's an
If you want,
MMO. That's the biggest thing. Con, it's an
yeah,
MMO.
it's an MMO and the feel of the gameplay and just a small thing is like artistic style for some things. It
That's
just
not
can make
again.
it
That's
can just make it like a drawing. Like I feel like getting more fatigued playing that than I do with like one of the solo single player Elder Scrolls games is what I'm getting at.
again like it's something I say like like graphics really shouldn't matter too much and how it looks. Like as long as it plays well, that's all that matters. Or the story's good. But the problem is like it's an MMO is the problem that I find. As someone who has extensively gotten into the Elder Scroll online game and that whole platform, it is just it's not even playing the game that's exhausting. It's just the people that are exhausting. Because you have those League of Legend, Overwatch, so and so
Oh,
elitists that are still in that game too. And like a lot of the good content is the end game content that they introduce with the DLCs and expansion packs, which is nice. But if you actually want to go through and do like veteran trials, veteran dungeons, dungeons are a little more forgiving in that game. But even like the trials, you have to hold up to a certain standard. You have to be wearing this. You have to be doing this. Your rotation must be perfect. You have to be hitting this DPS. Like that is the exhausting part of the game. It
It's
is
like a lot of modern online co-op games that aren't MMOs even. How like even if it's like it's entirely different setup, entirely different objectives, gameplay, story, etc. You have to have at least a tight knit kind of group, or at least one or two people that will regularly get on that are competent that you can rely
not
on
even
to
one or
like
two. It has to
progress.
be the entire group in that game. Your entire 12-man trial team has to be regulars in that game. You have to have spent hours upon
I didn't
hours
realize you needed that many
training.
people. I just thought you meant like your
Yes.
4-person group.
No. Your 4 people groups are your dungeons. Your dungeons are far more forgiving than your trials are. Your trials, you need 12-man people, and you have to coordinate with those groups. So you are freaking perfect running through those. So you have little to no deaths. You're making the perfect time. You're hitting leaderboards and all these other things. And that's the biggest draw. Like, if you can't, that's basically the peak of the
Is that what it's
PvE.
mainly about? Is leaderboards for that kind of thing?
For
It's
PvE,
not really.
yes. Because the
It's
problem
not just
is,
about like learning the story and playing and being the villain or whatever.
no one fucking cares about the story. It gets so
Even
much
like the little
worse.
side stuff when it gets for like
No.
even the more interesting regions, I guess.
It's not interesting no matter what. It's interesting the first time, but the moment you keep playing through it, it's not. And especially when you get to some of the later DLCs that they fucking release, it's fucking atrocious. There are Southern Elsewhere, I think is the best example I can use for this. But there is 6 main quests, like the big quests in the main storyline, but the problem is they could be so many smaller quests going through that. But the problem is they are so long and it's exhausting trying to go through it all. Because you feel like,
I,
okay, cool, there should be a break here, but there's not, and it keeps going. And it just
the thing
goes
that
on
sucks,
and on.
even with the new updates that are automatically DLCs when they first come out, they can just be kind of draining because they'd be like, oh, cool, look at this, look at this, look at this. Like, especially when they did the big reveal for the first Skyrim edition. It was real cool to see all the what they had in comparison to like the Oblivion Gates, the
It's
gimmick that
not
they had for
quite the
like the
same
little
because, like, it still
Hellspawn,
has a
basically.
charm to it. With Elder Scrolls Online, there's not a charm. It's a drag. It's a grind. It literally becomes that towards the end. It's not fun. The only parts about it that are fun is the actual content you have to play with other people. The solo content is not fun at all. And not to mention with some of the changes that they made with the one Tamriel. Because with one Tamriel, everything was really changed where you had to pretty much have either like be a DPS character or have a team, essentially. Like there really was no playing by yourself unless you were a DPS. And for someone who does not do well with DPS in any MMO kind of game, it was not fun for me.
I mean, honestly, that's almost what I always go for whenever I play Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah, not me. I was your healer tank, mostly tank, but again, like a lot of the draw for the PvE is the endgame content, which is the trials, and a lot of the endgame trials is like stuff from the expansion packs and the one DLC. The rest are expansion packs because you had Vardenfell that had the Halls of Fabrication, Somerset that had what was it called? I don't remember what it was fucking called. It was like a mini trial essentially. You had like 3 mini bosses you had to fight with no mobs in between, and then the big boss at the end. It's fucking Asylum. Oh, that was Clockwork DLC. No, Clockwork had a trial, so there wasn't just one DLC. Of course, the big one's Mauve Lorcage that came with the Thieves Guild DLC, which is like baby's first DLC trial, which is the fucking worst ever. It's what makes or breaks you. If you get your Maw skin, you can go into any trial, they say. And then they're like, well, where's this skin? It's like, but I don't have it yet. It's like, well, you can't run with us. Kind of thing. So, like,
Huh.
we need the gear from this trial, but if you're not going to run this trial with me, how am I supposed to get the gear kind of thing? A lot of gatekeeping,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah. Just like any big franchise, like even if I could compare it easily to a lot of MOBA franchises, like you said, League of Legends, or like Smite or Dota.
Basically. And
Yeah.
it's just exhausting. And like the only other aspect is the PvP, but like PvP was changed drastically, and I'm like, I don't want to fucking touch that anymore. Because like it made it where like it reduced the size of the groups that you can actually be into like I want to say 12. So you can only run around with like 12-man groups. You can't heal outside of your groups. You have to heal within your groups and all these other things. And I'm like, it reduces lag. But at the same time, like it wasn't as fun. Like it was so much fun just having these 30-man groups in PvP and just riding along with the Zerg. It was fun. It was great. But like you can't do that as a healer anymore. You can't just Zerg surf and heal everyone and get a bunch of fucking AP. It was fucking great back then, but I'm like, nope, I can't do it. And don't even get me started on the grind for Emperor. Like, holy fucking shit, that was awful. I fucking tried to do that one time. No, never again. I will never fucking ever do that again. Because, like, you need to be on there, like, 24/7. You have to have other people controlling your account. So you're on there getting AP at all times. It's very political. So, like, there's, like, if you don't know the right people, you're not going to get Emperor at all in that game. So it just fucking sucks. It's not a fun community. It is fairly toxic. And, like, I don't know. It's awful.
Skull for the part, we're just ranting about like the downfalls of Elder Scrolls Online, and basically, even if you love a lot of like the whole of like solo single player, the majority of Elder Scrolls games,
That's not what that game
you're
is.
you're gonna have a bad time playing online eventually.
You have
Is
a very bad time playing online. Like, don't get me wrong, like, it's decent enough going through the first time. Like, there's that charm. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. These quests are so interesting. Like, oh my gosh. But then once you get further down your line, you're like, oh my fucking gosh, why am I dealing with this shit? Especially when you have to deal with other people. And they're fucking shit.
basically.
Like, I will never
Yay.
touch Elder Scrolls Online again just because of the fucking people I came across in that game.
I will only play it if I can actually find a solid amount of people that I can trust to actually
Even
go
once you
through
do
with it.
that, it still falls apart. Like, it always ends up falling apart. That's the problem. Because drama. There's always fucking drama in that fucking game. Just like with any other fucking MMO. And it's fucking awful.
For me, it was never drama. It was just finding people that would continuously want to like get on
Again,
and play
once
it.
you find those people, drama tears you apart. It happens every single fucking time. It was awful. Don't ever play that
Or at
game.
least for small 4-man groups, it's not a drama really.
Well, okay, like I said, there is leeway with the dungeons because you can run around and do random dungeons just fine, and you can do that with a bunch of random nobodies. That's not an issue. Until they blame the fucking healer because, like, I don't know, whatever the fuck the problem was. Like, oh, I kept dying. I was like, you're standing in the fucking AoE, you dumb fucking shit. Maybe, I don't know, don't step in the red or whatever fucking color you made it.
Yeah.
Like, no, yeah, like, the 4-man content is fine. There's leeway with that. You can easily go into a random dungeon, clear it with a bunch of random nobodies, and just go your own way. Don't have to worry about anything. But it's the trial content that requires so much more. And that is the peak of the PvE stuff. You also have your I wouldn't even call them dungeons, but like arenas as well, where there's the solo arena of Maelstrom, and then Dragonstar and Murkmire have their own arenas. And probably more that came with later expansions and DLCs that I just can't be fucking bothered to even give a shit about anymore. But like, it's still got like obviously the Elder Scroll charm, but like, it's not an Elder Scrolls game. It's an MMO. It's not an Elder Scrolls game. It is an MMO. It is an MMO in the Elder Scrolls skin, which is fine at first, but then you get into the community and you're just like, what the fuck did I step into? What
If
the
you want
fuck
to
is this
ignore the
shit?
community and just play the storyline, it's a fine thing to do.
It's a
I
boring
would honestly,
storyline. I'm gonna say that
well,
right
if you,
now.
oh yeah, it's not the best storyline, which is why it's kind of boring and why I don't suggest it much. It's just kind of there is the best way I can put it.
And not to mention, like, trying to get, like, achievements is very grindy, and it's just so annoying, especially when you want to try and get, like, the stuff that requires, groups, which is a pain in the ass. And then, like, all the grinding that goes into getting, like, all the special stuff. If you want the skins, the personalities, the, like, one Necro Horror pet you got from, like, the first ever DLC. Like, if you want all of that stuff, you gotta grind your little ass off. You gotta get no deaths, times, hard mode, completions, and all that fun stuff. Like, it's literally a grind once you get to, like, end game. And I was at end game, and I'm just like, I can't fucking do this anymore. The people I found for trials were absolute shit a lot of the times. I was just, I don't know. I was a healer. I was kind of forced more into a tank after that because there was already too many healers. I couldn't DPS to save my life. Not to mention there's already too many fucking DPS in the game as it was. And I had such the biggest gripe with being a trial tank because they wanted me to wear a medium armor set. Well, medium armor set, I say. You have to wear the jewelry and then the weapons, but I refused to wear it. And they're like, "Well, we can't run with us if you don't fucking have it." I'm like, "Well, fuck you." So I became a dungeon tank. Then people don't want me for the dungeon tanks. They want the trials tanks, the dungeon tanks. I'm like, ugh. It's not a fun game. It's grindy, and if you want to do all the fun stuff, you have to adhere to a certain standard. And if you don't adhere to
It
that
really
standard, they kick you off to the side.
yikes.
Yeah.
It really does feel like League, like the League type of bullshit. And granted, League is kind of based mechanics at best. Meh.
See, there's a lot of mechanics in that game. Like, holy fucking shit. Especially when you get to some of, like, the later trials and that kind of shit. There are so many fucking mechanics you need to watch out for. It's fucking insane. the best one I can remember is Maw of Lorcaj, because I spent so much time in that fucking hell. You have one boss, like the first boss, he will create like a barrier around himself that you have to burn him down and destroy his barrier, because if you don't destroy the barrier, he wipes the whole group. There's pillars that come up every so often that when he lifts up his axe, you have to hide behind these crystals, otherwise you get immediately killed. And like there's so many other stuff, like a lot of even like the dungeons themselves, like the DLC dungeons have a lot of mechanics to them. Granted, a lot of it the tank has to watch out for, because the tank's the one sitting in front of the boss, but like, well, I say sitting in front of the boss, you're not really supposed to just sit there, but like that's another thing that we don't need to get into on top of that. But like, no, there's so many mechanics, there's so many standards that you have to adhere to the game, and the standard is constantly changing as well. And if you don't stay on top of it and be able to adjust to it, it's not fun. Like, you have to play this class, you have to be this race, you have to be this to get the perfect output and whatnot. It's not fun. It's not a fun Elder Scrolls game. Elder Scrolls game in quotes. It's an MMO. An MMO in its finest, purest form. And it's filled with a bunch of old people, adults, I should say. There's like no kids on the game. I will say that's like the one saving grace. So there's no like really any teenagers or anything. There's a bunch of like early 20s to like 50s people on there. It's like it's nothing but adults, but they still act like kids. Oh my gosh.
Word.
Oh yeah, it's great. Like I'd almost take playing Overwatch and actually dealing with the actual 10-year-olds that play that game over dealing with like a 30-year-old that acts like a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
It's that kind of game. But I've hit my swearing quota for the day, or more for the hour, I should say. I don't want to talk about that game anymore. Whatever Bethesda titles you guys want to talk about next, just like go fucking nuts.
You want to kick anything off with what you've played for in terms of Doom with us?
I will admit, most of the I remember like the newer ones more often. Like they're more clear in my memory. So
That's the same
I'll
here with
go.
me. I haven't played much of the originals. I just kind of know the base outline of the original story and just how it intertwines a little bit.
So I'm gonna say this up front. Doom is definitely one of the series that like. There's one thing that I would have to ask is like, if you ever heard of God of War or any of those games.
Wait, Doom is Bethesda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
I
literally
played
just said that
Doom.
earlier.
It was created by
Skull was
id.
gone.
It was created by id, and then id was acquisition by Bethesda in the early 2000s.
I've played Doom. I haven't played the story mode, but I played like the local verses. That was always fun.
In the 2016 version, I'm guessing, or Eternal?
Um,
The newer 3D one?
no. It was the 2D.
2D? Okay, so you
Yeah.
probably play like Doom 1 or Doom 2 then. Because Doom 64 is like the 3D-ish one.
I used to play it with my cousins all the time. We'd oh, it was fun.
Yeah, it's one of those great games. I mean, honestly, to summarize it up really well, if you like metal, if you like hack and slash, if you like gore, and if you like any game that involves demons and hell and creatures of the abyss, it's a great game just to get into just based off of that alone.
Yeah. It does remind me a lot. It feels like more a modern version of God of War.
I honestly haven't played much of God of War, but I've seen a bit of gameplay of the newer ones, and I can kind of see it in terms of like how the mechanics go for a lot of the melee.
Is Doom a Christian game?
No.
Right.
I mean, you are killing demons.
So
No. The Doom is one of those games where if you had very religious grandparents and they saw the game, they'd be like, "This was made by Satan."
It would be like you
Get
worship,
out the
you
holy
summon
water!
demons. He's
We
wearing
need to
ripped jeans
purify
and
you,
upside
child.
down
We need
crosses.
to cleanse this house with sage!
Yeah, that.
Oh my gosh. Fucking idiot.
But I'll say I have not played the Doom 2016 reboot game, but I have played and completed Doom Eternal, which is a direct continuation of that, and I have played and seen most of the story for like Doom 1 through 3. I've played a bit of each of them, and I've seen and I know most of the storyline for that. And I can say that if you want to jump into the game, I just suggest either jumping into Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal. Honestly, I jumped into Doom Eternal not knowing a damn thing except the basis of like the background of Doom is like, oh, creatures from hell are invading the Earth and they're taking over everything and they're destroying cities, this and that, just kind of causing chaos, and the military wants to intervene. And then they realize that the portals are not only on Earth, but they're also source them back to Mars, which it's a little bit of a futuristic kind of vibe because that's where they got a few military bases planted. And then you've got this no-name military guy who's sent off on a sole mission with a small squad that instantly gets wiped out and to go search what's going on in the base.
My only experience with Doom was playing one of the older Doom games, and they had the multiplayer versus or whatever that you could play on like the same console. It was just that, and my cousins and I looking for, I think it was a chainsaw or something, and we'd basically just play tag and see who could get the most kills by the end. But that was my experience with Doom. Story? No. Playing tag with a chainsaw? Yes.
Yeah, yes, just it's so great because you could, if even if you're not caring about the story or anything like that, if you're just there to play the game, it's great hack and slash. It just really creative, like hellish demons, and oh my. I'm a person that loves gore in video games, and the animations from 2016 to Eternal, there's a huge quality of life improvement, and it's a beautiful game. And the fact that the chainsaw is not a sole weapon that you have to like go and find, and then like once it runs out of gas, it runs out of gas, but that it's kind of always there with you in Doom Eternal and Doom. I mean, you still have to have gas to fill it up, kind of like ammunition for any of the guns, but you get gas pretty often, and it's almost an instant kill for a lot of the minor demons at the very least, and it's just so refreshing because that's actually your main way of getting ammunition in the game is you have to use your chainsaw.
It's also basically instant kill for players. I'm
So you haven't played any of
gonna
the
keep going
multiplayer.
back to this. No, playing video games with my cousins, it was either that or we'd play Halo, specifically Juggernaut, and we'd do the exact same thing but with energy
Yeah, that's what I was
swords.
gonna say. It's a lot like early Halo games where you're just like going back and forth and killing each other, or like going back and forth and like just seeing who can kill the most aliens or whatever.
Yeah.
Sounds
Have
about
you
right.
And then they got the insane weapons that get crazier and crazier. Like on top of having just the chainsaw, then you also got like the shotgun, and then like, oh, how can they improve upon the shotgun? They got the super shotgun, which has a chain hook shot that you can pull creatures close to you, and then once they're in a certain range, you can just shoot it, just like a straight headshot. On top of that, you get crazier weapons like the laser weapons, like the BFG, the big fucking gun. It's just a gigantic laser cannon, essentially, and it can just instant kill a ton of enemies within a radius. I could go on about it, but it's pretty simple. It's first-person shooter, and it's just hell landscape for the most part. Is there anything else you want to talk
I was
about
about
it,
to say,
Rufus?
anything else,
Or is
guys?
that about it?
I've had my little feel about chainsaws. I'm happy.
Yeah. Honestly, I just say, I'm gonna just say, as like a sales pitch is like, if you don't mind gore and if you're like interested with just mildly religious themes, I would say
Wild.
with the whole demons thing.
I
I
Yeah,
mean,
can see,
just cause it doesn't really have to be religious if it's like demons,
yeah,
though.
yeah.
but I'm kind of somewhat trying. I'm trying to I'm trying to sell a whole kit. I'm
Oh,
trying to sell
no
like
one
a
cares about selling
huge.
it. It's just we're here
Yeah.
to talk about Bethesda as Bethesda is.
I know.
You want to sell me a game? Just say I can kill people with a chainsaw.
There's a lot of fan service in it, but the fan service is because it's not even the thing that makes the game just makes it appealing to obviously older fans, which yes, that's what it's mainly there for. But me, when I went in as the newest game, Doom Eternal being my first game, I saw all those cute little references. Like they got little bobbleheads you can get for different stuff. You can find secret, trophies, this and that, like a lot of older games. And there's like, oh, you could find like 6 or 7 of these little music like vinyl records, and it's just got like really cool like music art, like a bunch of inspiration from like older metal and rock bands too for a lot of the stuff. Like I think I might have shown once or twice, like the main character Doom guy, he has this pet. He's this pet rabbit. I forget what the bunny's name is. And one of the sad things is, I think in 1 or 2, I think it's the beginning of 1. Like his rabbit is dead. He goes home and he finds that his bunny is dead, and it's just like a mess of. I mean, it's gory because it's just a dead bunny. It's really really sad, but it's kind of funny and silly at the same time because that it's his whole ambition for like going and killing a lot of the demons like early on too, and it's just so wholesome. Like he's doing, at least initially, he's doing a lot of it just like vengeance for his bunny. And then of course you got a lot of collectible armors and stuff like that from the early games, but yeah.
The sudden switch there. You're like avenging dead bunny and then collectibles.
I mean, because that's what a lot of it is. Because in Doom Eternal, there's like certain trophies where you got a poster of like the bunny, and it's still alive somewhere out there in like the newer game because you're in like an alternate reality and this and that. And there's just a lot of little things that build up to making it a pretty wholesome game. Is what I gotta say. That's pretty much it.
Who'd have thought that Doom would be wholesome?
I mean, have you seen any of the crossovers with Doom Guy and Isabel from Animal Crossing?
No.
There are a
Wait,
million
you
of them
haven't seen that
because
shit?
No.
Even I don't play
oh,
fucking Doom when I see that shit.
so Doom Eternal came out on the same day that Animal Crossing New Horizon came out. So there's a ton of crossovers with Isabel and Doom Guy just like hunting. It's so great. And it's so funny because there's animations where you just see Isabel saying the classic Doom phrase, rip and tear until it is done, and then you see her pull out a shotgun and go kill all the
Bitch is gonna
demons.
die.
It's just so great.
So, anything else?
Nope.
No.
I mean, all those crossover memes is literally why I named my island Mars and New Horizon.
I see. So, Skull doesn't have anything else to add. Ruthless, what about you?
Other than just, it's a decent it's a decent franchise. Like, I recommend it to anyone who just loves just in general, just like anything that's kind of like if you just like a very dumb game and just doing chaotic shit like that, then you're gonna like it.
Okay. Raptor, is there anything you want to add to overall Bethesda?
I'm gonna say no
Yeah, I had a
because
feeling.
I'm tired.
Thank God.
All right, let's
I
end it
don't think
there
I can
then.
handle anymore. I don't think I could handle any more of that.
I was gonna say there's like 2 games I know of that I haven't played if you guys wanted to, but I don't know much about them really. I was gonna say
Nah.
Evil Within or like Wolfenstein, but those are just kind of like I don't know, their own kind of plot single player games. They're not very open world.
Yeah, it's not really my cup of tea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go into those topics. And I actually had a friend of mine that literally was like, "Come on," like was wanting me to play that game over at his house. So I have vivid memories.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to end there. Wouldn't you guys say?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
All right. Well, this has been Lotus, Skull, Raptor, and Ruthless, as well as our guest star Soulblade, as we talked about Bethesda. You guys have a wonderful night, morning, evening, day, whatever the case may be, and see you guys next week.